Welcome, everybody, into the third episode in the third edition of Wrestling is Art podcast. Today, we will be talking about Ric Flair and AEW and everything to do with AEW versus NXT. So, we're going to kick it off with the lower topics today, and that would be Ric Flair and AEW. So, with all the controversy that it stirred on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it does look like Ric Flair is signed with AEW for more appearances, at least during the last run of Sting, a little bit, I would assume. So, I'm going to say this for AEW, as long as he is not wrestling, I will not have a problem with it. Because we've seen how that last match went. Well, I've seen clips of it. I didn't want to see the whole match. So we all know at his age he cannot do that. So, Tony, I'm pleading, do not put him in the ring, even in a six-man. Or at all, like at all. As long as he's more of a guy that just speaks on the mic, you know what I mean? We'll have a fine run. That's all we'll say about it. And basically, that is all I'm going to say about that on this podcast because I'm not getting into the controversy behind it. I might in a different video, but not now. Not in this podcast. So we're going to move on to the main topic of today, where I will spend as much time as possible on it. In the whole AEW versus NXT, I know everybody's doing this because Tony, if I'm going to be honest, should not talk as much as he does on Twitter, X at all. Should not. People love it. The fans love it. I find it cringe. I really do. And this is coming from a guy that likes both AEW and WWE. So I'm going to speak unbiasedly about this. I just do not like the way Tony at times unbiasedly seems childish on Twitter. And I mean it, childish. He does on Twitter X seem like this spoiled brat that takes the money that he's given from his dad, and his dad's a billionaire, and just uses that money to have himself a show that he dreamed of, like he said, since he was a kid, dreaming and booking on like Total Extreme Wrestling, the um, simulator slash match booker, everyday booker of wrestling, any company, whatever. So he does come off that way on X. I would assume he's more humble than that, but I do not know that for a fact. But I will say this: people talking about ratings. And okay, I'm gonna do this unbiasedly. The people that are saying AEW had a harder time with ratings on Wednesday than Tuesday on NXT, 2.8 million people watched the Lakers game versus the Nuggets. It's probably gonna be one of the biggest games this year for NBA because that was a anticipated matchup for so many people on opening day. In the what was it? The game 7 in the MLB on Tuesday. You of course had a lot of NHL games on Tuesday or whatever, and you had a lot of basketball games on Tuesday. Wednesday you had some basketball games, but I'm going to tell you this: like I'm gonna say this wholeheartedly. As much as ratings fully used to matter, they don't matter as much as they used to. Especially if you get digital numbers, if you get clicks, especially if you get views on YouTube or whatever on whatever Instagram and Twitter. It doesn't matter as much as it used to in the Attitude Era, which, to be honest, I was not privy to. I was privy to the ruthless aggression. Wow, I can't speak. But the ruthless aggression era, um, and watching John Cena, Randy, and all those, and Shelton get better and better each time out, and Batista and Brock. But I went back and watched the Attitude Era, of course, and I have tinted glasses towards it, of course. I enjoyed what I did see of it. I seen most of it. Of course, The Rock, Stone Cold. But my favorite thing, and a lot of people are going to hate this, was the tag teams. It was Edge and Christian, it was the Hardys, and it was the Dudleys. And of course, it was Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero is one of my favorite of all time. Um, but what I'm going to go over here is that ratings don't mean as much as they used to. And I would even say networks fully don't fully look at them anymore. If you've seen some networks with TV deals and like some of their TV shows, some of them start off hot, right? And then when they tail off, they keep them seasons and seasons after their expiration dates, as ratings would tell them, right? Doesn't matter. Ratings don't matter as much as they used to because people want content. It's more of the content era where people want content to put on their TV stations, on their networks, on their YouTubes, on their streaming platforms. So ratings fully don't matter. They do to some degree, but they don't in the larger scheme of things because people more worry about, because you've seen some of the TV shows go on when they have like 200,000 viewers, and you're kind of like, why is this still on? Because like I used to watch the ratings and see like, because I would wonder why some TV shows got canceled and stuff back in the day, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Some of them definitely didn't make sense because there were still so many viewers, but it catches you off guard at times. Back then, it did with some of the cancellations. But I'm gonna tell you, they're all safe. I think NXT is gonna get an increase. I think just I think NXT is definitely getting an increase. I think a marginal increase for Monday Night Raw, and I think Dynamite and Collision at least, if you don't bundle everything, which you probably will if you're gonna get the streaming deal with Max. You're gonna end up see the rumor that was back a while back and it hasn't happened was the $1 billion plus deal. I don't know if they're getting that. If they do, it's going to be a 10-year deal. So my prediction on their TV deal is in the range of 500 to 800. 500 to 800 over 3 to 5 years. And that is my prediction for the TV deal for AEW. NXT is going to be a harder one for me, but with the ratings, and I know people are like, well, you had main roster stars, you do. But network only looks at numbers and/or how the demographic and how the people are seeing it and if there's traction behind it, right? I'm going to tell you there will be a bigger increase in NXT than Raw because Raw's only get a marginal for me increase. I think it gets around what SmackDown get Raw. I think Raw gets around what SmackDown gets. And what I mean by a bigger increase is in what it's worth versus, you know what I mean? Like an increase in what it was. Because NXT didn't get anything to get on network television, to be honest. It did not. Black and Gold did not get paid to be on network. Did not. It was more of a thing that USA wanted more content. So what we're going to end up seeing from me is I would not hate this. People are going to hate me for saying this. I see NXT as a streaming thing. I'm going to be honest. I see NXT and Raw going to a streaming. I really do. And I see people are going to hate this. SmackDown, if USA Network loses Raw, will become 3 hours. And it will be, I think it'll be on a Tuesday because they've been working on a Tuesday basically. What we're going to end up seeing, in my personal opinion, is Monday Raw, Tuesday SmackDown, and Wednesday will be head to head with AEW, but it'll be on a streaming network. So NXT will be on Wednesdays, and NXT will be on a streaming network. In my prediction, I don't know if it's right, but I'm going to say Raw and NXT go to Amazon Prime. The thing goes to Amazon Prime. Together, the deal will be around 1.6. I'll say 1.617. So around 200 million for NXT, 300 around that range, which is an increase for what it was, which was free and put on there. So I'll say that 1.7 for both, which overall in those deals that they will have will be over 2 billion. Actually, yeah, it'd be over 2 billion, around almost $3 billion. Not including what's going to happen, which my prediction is ESPN Plus will eventually get pay-per-views. And I'm saying that literally pay-per-views because what you're going to end up seeing is you're going to end up seeing probably $60, $70 pay-per-views. And they're going to start it off with WrestleMania. I'm almost certain they would. And I'm not happy about that. That's one thing I'm not going to be happy about, but people will buy that. People, everybody knows people will pay that, especially for WrestleMania. But this whole thing about AEW versus NXT, it's more of an us thing than it is a people hating each other on each side. Because, like MJF said in the past on an interview, they root each other on to get deals, to get money in this industry. It used to not be like that in the Attitude Era. So people will like clown this era and say it's the friendship era. And it can be at times, but it's like, it's better when multiple people in this business have options to make as much money as they can in this world of pro wrestling. And what I'm going to end up saying here is I'm going to go over a little bit of Halloween Havoc and then AEW and my top things, my MVPs of shows. My MVPs for Dynamite this week was Swerve Strickland, like always. Swerve Strickland in the House Invasion. Didn't do too much, but it set a standard. Not a standard, but did some interesting things there. But yeah, Swerve is one of my MVPs of Dynamite. And my only other MVP for me this week for Dynamite was, I know people are like, well, it's a match. I'm not usually the biggest for matches. I'm more on promos and stuff. But I will say this. I was an AEW fan for their matches back in 19, 20, 21, 22. And I slowed down on matches, to be honest, because I can see them anywhere. I can watch matches anywhere, New Japan, anywhere, WWE. But I will say, I'm interested in Kenny Omega versus MJF Saturday on Collision. And to be honest, this will be my first time watching Collision live. And I'm hoping it's good. I really do. Um, I know what they'd be expecting around 700K viewers. It's gonna be hard on a Saturday to get that, but I think my rough estimates will be 550 to 600,000 for that match. Which, in the grand scheme, you'd probably rather put it on a pay per view. But the story that they're telling is Kenny Omega defending the streak of his world championship, which I enjoy that story. I think it's best to do it that way. And you could revisit down the line MJF and Kenny Omega again, and you could do a screwy finish. You legit could do a screwy finish. And you could set up Bullet Club, right? Versus Kenny Omega, right? Not Bullet Club versus Kenny Omega, but Bullet Club. And you have MJF have Kenny Omega in his corner. But that was my MVPs for AEW this week. And for NXT, I have 3. Now, this one's a controversial one. Lexus King, Brian Pillman Jr. I'm going to say this. He's an MVP for the presentation of him. To me, he has a character, and he will be able to do some character work. And when you have character work, as seen by some people, I'm going to mention a name, but I will say he's getting better, to be honest. Dominic Mysterio, character work. But I'm going to tell you this. Dominic is getting better in the ring. He's not the greatest, but he's getting better in the ring. But especially on the main roster, as long as you got the gift of the gab to talk on the microphone, you'll be fine. But I think 6-7 to a year down in NXT for Brian Pillman Jr., Lexus King is perfect for him. Give him an NXT North American title or World Championship run. But by that time, he should get a little better in the ring and get a little smoother. With that, either I would change the finisher or at least by that time have it a little smoother. Because I think it's a good signature. Like some people said, I think it's a good signature. But he's going to have to smooth it out. He's just going to have to smooth it out a little bit. But he is one of my MVPs. Second MVP is Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch. Like I've said in the past, I'm not as big into matches as I was, but I will say it did exactly what it needed to do. It was a very good match between Lyra and Becky Lynch. This run that Becky has been on has been very good for underutilized women in WWE. And the match she had with Tiffany Stratton, the first one was good. The second one was great. I enjoyed it a lot. This run for Becky proves what you should do if you go down to NXT, what you should do with the belt. And that's what Charlotte's reign should have been. Charlotte didn't do that, but Becky's reign was exactly what it needed to be. It was very good for what it needed to be, which was helping women, like more women, get on TV. And that match was very good between Lyra and Becky. My question is, do we see Lyra and Jade Cargill? And if the answer is yes, which I don't think it is, but if the answer is yes, that would mean Lyra's losing this belt very quickly, in which you don't need to do. So what I would hope they do, and I think they will do, is Jade's going to be on the main roster, and you don't want to put her with Becky already. So what you're going to end up doing in her first match for Jade Cargill, you're going to hide a little bit of like inconsistencies, right? That's what you should do. Is you're going to end up putting her in if you do it, a female War Games or a traditional Survivor Series match to kind of hide it, in which you can do with her moveset. She has a very physical move set, and if you have her have like spurts in a match, either in War Games for women or a traditional 5-on-5 women's match, for me, I would prefer not a War Game situation because as much as she could just be very strong and brutal in that match. I would prefer a more powerful sprint, not a sprint, but a more sporadic pace in a 5-on-5 traditional match for the women. Because I think there would be more opportunities for like a maybe a slip up in a War Games match. But I would believe what we're going to end up seeing is her first match will be at Survivor Series. She will show up at Crown Jewel more than likely, be in the crowd or have an appearance at the show somehow, some way. Um, but I will say Survivor Series will more than likely be her first match. And I think what we're going to end up seeing is Becky Lynch. I would rather her win an Elimination Chamber, but I have a feeling we're going to end up seeing Becky Lynch win the Rumble. So I have a feeling we're going to either see, yeah, I think we're going to see Becky Lynch win the Rumble and then face Rhea at Mania. So in my other prediction, early prediction for Rumble for the men is Gunther. I think Gunther would be amazing. And more we get closer, I'm having a feeling that Gunther will not lose that IC title. He will more than likely have it on him at WrestleMania when, for me, he defeats Seth Rollins for the world title and then relinquishes the belt. This is my fantasy booking, okay, guys? We end up seeing the title won in Germany, right? That's where the tournament ends, right? And we see in the finale because Gunther wants one of his guys to be in the or both of his guys to be in the tournament and win the title. So because Ludwig is from Germany, in the final, Ludwig Kaiser versus either a Chad Gable, an Ilya Dragunov, a Tyler Bate in the finale would be perfect for me. I think it'd be enjoyable. I think it'd be a great match with a great atmosphere. Any of those matches for the IC title in Germany. But that's far ahead, but that's my early predictions for Rumble. But getting back to my MVPs, I went on a tangent. I'm sorry, guys. But my MVPs so far for NXT, Lexis King for the presentation of what he's doing in potential, because he's already got some charisma. So I'm gonna say that he has the presentation down, and that's an MVP for me this week for NXT in Lyra versus Becky Lynch. It was a star making performance for Lyra, but let's see what she can do with it. I think you're gonna have to do some creative stuff with Lyra. Um, and before the Becky Lynch matches, to be on track here, Lyra was Tiffany's best match in NXT before Becky. Becky had a way better match with Tiffany. But I'm telling you, Lyra is a very good wrestler. Nobody's disputing that she's very good in the ring. I'm hoping she proves even more on the microphone, improves. I think that will prove more on the main roster if you have a microphone skills. Um, but I think she can get there, if not in a decent way. Mm. But what we're going to end up saying for the third MVP for this week's Halloween Havoc is more of a mystery. No, actually, my MVP, my third MVP, is going to be next week's Lola Vice versus Kalani Jordan breakout tournament finale. And who I think is going to win that is Lola Vice, especially with Lyra holding the title. You will need a heel challenging for it. So Lyra versus Lola Vice will happen. And of course, Lyra will keep it, but it'll be Lola having the contract to cash in at any time or putting it ahead of time, like what she wants in that championship match. So I think Lola Vice versus Lyra Valkyria is coming down the line. And a quick discussion will be it's more of a down in the comment section. Who do you think attacked Trick Williams? Do you think it's as obvious as people think it is? Because there's only two options for me. There's legit only two options of this at least making some sort of sense, right? For me, I would love it to be Mello because a heel Mello is just money in so many ways. I like him as a face, but heel Mello is where he's going to make his money on the main roster. Heel Mello versus a crowd favorite Trick Williams, and that being his last feud in NXT sounds good to me. Very good. And I know what Shawn's doing, if that's the way we're going, is a Shawn Michaels versus Triple H feud again. So they're basically redoing that, which I love, like him doing these little things to bring back stuff that he's done. But in this case, Mello would be Triple H, and Trick would be Shawn. Or the only other one that would make any sort of sense for me is Trick got attacked by Wesley, who we have not seen in a long time on NXT. But the last time we did see him was in the background when Trick and Mello were discussing stuff and like talking. In the background, he's packing up his stuff, but he was listening. So that would be the only other person to me that would make any sort of sense. Would be Wesley. Would be the only other. My personal what I want it to be is Mello, because a heel Mello versus a face Trick Williams is money. And that being Mello's last feud before getting called up, I think it's perfect. And I think you could stretch that feud till deadline in December if you really wanted to get Mello in his debut at the Rumble or around the Rumble. You know what I mean? Because I see Mello and Braun in the Rumble getting called up. So I think you're going to try to space them as long as you can before bringing them up because you'd rather bring them in the Rumble, I would think. But I think Mello should have his last feud in NXT after his match with Ilya this week on NXT with Trick Williams. I think it'd be very good for Trick to have his last match, have Mello's last match in NXT before getting called up. I think it's poetic that it'd be Trick and Mello in the last, because they started together in NXT 2.0, and for it to end with them together against each other in NXT would just be poetic and a great way to end it for Mello before going to main roster. But those were my MVPs in a quick discussion at the end. Who do you guys down below in the comment section? Who you guys think Mello? Ooh, who you think Mello? I already said who I think. Mello, I think did it, but who you guys think attacked Trick Williams? Put it down in the comments and like, comment, subscribe for more videos And please go check out my community tab. And thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.